Thank you for joining us. Our presentation today features Brett Miller, a research analyst covering the technology sector. Please note the information and opinions discussed today do not constitute investment advice. Any securities mentioned are not necessarily held by Lazard Asset Management and should not be considered a recommendation or solicitation to buy or sell those securities. All opinions expressed are subject to change. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Brett.
In this presentation, we will focus on the evolution of the global payments markets and how the industry has evolved. We will dig deeper into the smartphone app-driven digital wallets in China, the entrenched card network ecosystems in the US, and finally, we will discuss the burgeoning opportunity in India. The migration from cash to card is not new, but the pace of innovation and disruption within the payments landscape has accelerated. With $41 trillion of consumer purchase expenditures globally, it is amazing that still close to half of that spend is occurring using cash and check, which provides a long runway for growth in digital payment methods for years to come. China, North America, and Europe have passed 50% card and digital penetration and continue to move higher. China offers a case study in which the leading internet platforms, Alibaba and Tencent, launched their own digital payment wallets to solve a real market need around making online payments for e-commerce purchases, and have ultimately disrupted the incumbent card network and expanded into a wide array of payment use cases. In the United States and most developed markets, the entrenched ecosystems around Visa and MasterCard, which include the banks, merchants, consumers, and merchant acquirers, are very strong, and the incumbents have been partnering with the new technology-led entrants to build on top of the existing ecosystem. Meanwhile, India is a country still dominated by cash usage, but at an inflection point, ripe for conversion to digital payments, and there are a variety of different companies looking to capture their fair share of the digital payments opportunity. This chart gives you a sense of how that increasing penetration of card and digital payment methods translates into the growth of non-cash transactions. From 2012 to 2016, credit, debit, and digital transactions grew from 331 billion to 482 billion a year. That's about 10% growth rate globally, or roughly twice the growth rate of consumer spending. The biggest enabler of change and innovation in payments has been the smartphone, which has inspired and powered new digital payment use cases and many more ways to pay and be paid. The open source Android operating system made it possible for low cost but still very powerful smartphones to reach the mass market over the past 8 years. Since then, digital wallets have become a new form factor with which we pay. The smartphone itself, through an attached dongle or through the camera and QR codes, can now be a point of acceptance for payments, and that has substantially lowered the upfront cost of acceptance for merchants. Uber, for instance, has improved customer experience to the point that many consumers now expect that payments to occur seamlessly in the background, a phenomenon that has actually habituated many people to hop out of traditional taxis without remembering they need to pay. And companies like Square in the US and Alipay in China have shown that software and data surrounding payments can be very valuable in enabling other tangential services such as lending. In this chart, we can see the massive growth in smartphone shipments in China from less than 100 million units in 2011 to over 400 million units in 2014, which set the foundation for disruption in the payments market. When we look at India, it makes for an interesting comparison that smartphone shipments and internet penetration are just now getting to levels that China was at in 2011 and 2012. We think this is one factor that sets the stage for accelerating digital payments adoption in India over the next few years. If we step back 5 to 10 years, China was still primarily a cash-based society, with China UnionPay cards distributed through banks in a structure similar to the Visa and MasterCard ecosystem and targeted largely to the premium higher income consumer. Fast forward to the present, and the mobile payment wallets backed by the leading Chinese internet platforms dominate the payments market, processing over $10 trillion digitally annually, according to the Wall Street Journal. By most any measure, the scale and penetration of the mobile internet, e-commerce, or financial technology in China has leapfrogged the United States, bypassing plastic cards in the mass market in favor of smartphone-based digital wallets. The adoption of digital payments has been a key enabler of all the innovation. As low-cost, open-sourced Android smartphone adoption began to ramp in China in 2012, e-commerce gained traction on Alibaba's mobile apps, and Alibaba recognized the need for a trusted solution to easily pay for e-commerce purchases online, and a payment solution that could scale at a low cost for mass consumer adoption in what was largely a cash economy. Prior to Alibaba's innovation, cash on delivery was the standard for e-commerce purchases. China UnionPay cards were mostly used by only the high-end consumers at physical stores in larger cities, so there was a big opening for Alibaba to solve a real problem, where the incumbent card network had failed to invest. Alibaba's solution, Alipay, functions as a digital wallet funded through a bank account or with cash deposited with an agent, enabling a trusted way to pay for e-commerce purchases on Alibaba sites, even for consumers without a credit or debit card. E-commerce on mobile devices was clearly the killer app for Alibaba that drove adoption of Alipay, while messaging and gaming were the killer apps for Tencent's internet platform, which quickly followed with its own digital wallet. Alibaba and Tencent together have more than 1 billion highly engaged users whose lives are deeply integrated into their respective super apps that span e-commerce, communications, media, gaming, financial services, and other offline services. Merchants in China were eager to gain access to these users, so Alipay and Tencent developed integrations to let users pay for third-party services through their digital wallets. This screenshot shows Tencent's WeChat user interface. Through the WeChat Pay digital wallet, an individual can order dinner, movie tickets, pay utility bills, invest cash in high-yield savings accounts, donate to charity, or order a taxi, all in the same application. These digital wallets are able to span into the physical retail world to pay for purchases at local merchants by scanning a QR code with the mobile app's camera. According to WorldPay, as of 2017, 65% of payments online were made through digital wallets in China, which puts adoption of mobile payments well ahead of the United States. We believe the mobile payments disruption in China was enabled by a unique set of circumstances: an incumbent in China UnionPay that had not invested to address the mass market and online transactions, smartphone adoption that led to significant e-commerce demand and the need for a trusted way to pay, and massive Alibaba and Tencent user bases who wanted an alternative to cash payments at physical retailers. North America looks quite different, though, with very limited traction for digital wallets, despite high smartphone adoption. Why haven't digital wallets gained usage like they have in China? In China, the new mobile wallets merely had to provide a solution which was better than cash because there was not mass market adoption of cards. Here in the United States, would-be disruptors need to change the behavior of all the participants within the card ecosystem, which is already well in place. In most developed Western economies, the Visa and MasterCard ecosystems, which include banks, consumers, merchants, and merchant acquirers, already work quite well. For consumers, any new system would have to offer a payment method that is easier than swiping a card and more lucrative than receiving reward points. Not only do banks profit from the interchange revenue they receive from debit and credit cards, the cards also promote stickier, more profitable customer relationships. And for most merchants, cards make the sales process as frictionless and fast as possible, which generally is a much greater priority than any concern around fees for all but the largest merchants. The very scale and complexity of the established payment networks poses a high barrier to entry. The Visa network, the largest, has issued more than 3 billion cards through more than 13,000 banks, enabled by 3,000 merchant acquirer partners, and accepted at 44 million merchant locations. When a customer puts a card in a terminal, the payment information gets routed from the merchant acquirer to the card network, which obtains authorization from the bank that issued the consumer's card, and in turn debits the consumer's card account and credits the seller's bank account. Not only is the system seamlessly efficient, but its participants have a powerful incentive to maintain it. Every step along the way, each intermediary takes a cut. The typical credit card transaction in the United States generates roughly 2.5% in fees. We estimate the comparable cost of a digital wallet transaction in China on Alipay or WeChat Pay, which reduces the number of intermediaries, runs at about 0.5%. So with the higher hurdle in the US, as long as Visa and MasterCard continue to innovate to keep up with technological change in features like smartphones, e-commerce, and security, we believe the incumbents will sustain their dominance. Their strategy to keep up with the innovation has been to partner with potential disruptors and convince them to deploy their solutions on top of the existing Visa and MasterCard networks. For example, the vast majority of Apple Pay and PayPal wallets are funded by Visa and MasterCard cards on the existing ecosystem. Indeed, innovators like Square have actually helped cement Visa and MasterCard's leadership by enabling micro merchants like plumbers and dog walkers to accept cards instead of cash and checks. The takeaway here is that there are multiple constituents who are all incentivized to continue to play within the existing card network ecosystem, which makes the barrier for disruptive digital wallets much higher than it was in China. Notwithstanding the near universal acceptance of plastic in the developed markets and the phenomenal success of digital wallets in China, payment systems still have a lot of room for global growth. A substantial minority of the world's population, some 2.5 billion people, don't even have access to banks. India is the market we find most ripe for rapid change. Cash still dominates as the payment method of choice, accounting for 86% of all consumer purchase spending in India, and e-commerce penetration remains very low. At the same time, low-cost Android smartphone availability is increasing internet access, with smartphone penetration reaching 25% of the population. The government has encouraged the introduction of payment systems as well, in an effort to formalize more of the economy and increase the tax compliance. It recently instituted policies to reduce the supply of cash within the economy and set standards to make it easy for third-party mobile wallets to connect with bank accounts and transfer money between parties, referred to as Unified Payments Interface or UPI wallets. Pairing smartphone adoption with these government initiatives, we believe the stage is set for significant secular growth in digital payments in what is the 5th largest economy in the world. Competitors, domestic and international, have flocked to the opportunity, joining Visa and MasterCard, whose presence in the market extends back 3 decades, in a race to sign up consumers as well as merchants to accept payments through QR codes. Visa and MasterCard have substantial footprint with their debit and credit cards, making up about 80% of the card-based payments in India in 2017, but off a low base. However, numerous UPI mobile wallets are gaining rapid adoption in low-value but frequent person-to-person payments and micro-merchant payments. As seen in the chart, as of early 2018, the UPI system was handling 200 billion rupees per month, and quickly catching up to the levels of traditional Visa and MasterCard card-based payments. Adding to the mix, there is also the local debit network called RuPay, Paytm wallets backed by Alibaba, and Google and Facebook are also experimenting with UPI wallets, though it's unclear if their goal around payments is to gain a foothold in Indian e-commerce and build a payments business, or simply to reduce friction and aid advertising conversion rates. India is not as closed of a market as China is, so there is opportunity for foreign investment. Over the next several years, we believe the US-based processors will compete over this large market opportunity as they missed out on China. The Chinese companies will remain an important factor as they look to expand their presence in Southeast Asia. Nevertheless, we could see a scenario where the government ends up favoring local initiatives. Indeed, it has already put in place laws around data localization, which the U.S. companies view as restrictive. The number of competitors with the resources to compete for a share of this vast market testifies to the health of the global payments markets, just as the intensity of the competition testifies to the magnitude of their opportunities. To the winners will go additional compounding and sticky recurring revenues in a business that generates high profitability and strong returns once it has achieved scale. As the industry evolves, we believe we will continue to find attractive investment opportunities across both the incumbents and newer technology-enabled entrants.